Hi, I'm Kat Wepler. I'm the Director of Production here at TheatreSquared. Welcome to this episode of our Play On educational web series. Today I wanted to tell you about what my role is here and give you a sense of what production management is and what the production process is on a whole. First, a little bit about my background. I've been with T2 for almost 4 years now. I'm originally from Indiana. I went to undergrad in Ohio. Then I worked out in California at both large and small theaters. I then went to grad school in Connecticut before coming here to Arkansas. So I've bounced around a little bit, and I've been doing production management for almost 11 years now. And now I guess you might be wondering what production management is. I often tell people that my purview is anything you see or hear on stage, except the actors. But sometimes the actors. To better explain, I'm going to talk you through our production process from script to stage, and just give you an overview on what all we do. So when you go in to see a show, you probably pick up the program and you can see everybody that has had a hand in the process. The people I'm going to focus on today are some of those that are under the creative list here, including the director and any of these designers, but as well as the production team and the production staff. And it's how those creatives, that creative team and the production team collaborate into bringing the vision together. So yeah, so and so as you probably know, the creative team is led by the director and includes designers for scenery, costumes, lights, sound, sometimes projections, as well as individuals like the choreographer and music director. Who is needed on a team will change depending on the needs of the show. For instance, if there isn't dance in the show, you're not going to need a choreographer on it. So next, I just want to step through the phases of a production. In many ways, it'll be similar to the process that you go through at your school's theater departments. We just do it on a slightly larger scale. And our hope in walking you through the process is not only that you will be able to better understand how we do what we do here, but also that maybe you'll have a deeper appreciation for what your teachers in school and what your school's your tech team accomplish on their own. So let's jump right in. So the first phase is the design phase. And this is where the ideas are born. So the first thing we do once we know what the plays are going to be is, the first thing we do when we know what the plays are going to be is we hire the director and we start talking to them about who they'd like to be on their creative team. Some of these individuals live here in Fayetteville, and many come from out of town, based in New York, Chicago, or anywhere else in the country. We may start meeting with the group about 6 months before rehearsals start. Since we're so spread out across the country, we do a lot of this over phone and video calls. We will, a lot of times our first meeting is called a design kickoff meeting. At this meeting, everyone arrives having read the script, and they start to discuss what direction our production is going to go. How do they want the show to feel? What do they want it to look like? How is the production going to be meaningful and exciting to our audiences at this moment in time? Basically, what makes our version special from any other version that's done at another company or has been done before. From that point, designers will start compiling research, sketching out ideas, drawing, submitting designs. Through this phase, the production department at T2 is also giving feedback. Since we work in the space for every show, we have the memory of what has really worked well in the past, and we can contribute that knowledge as well. So from the design phase, next we go towards the technical design and budgeting phase. Technical design is essentially the how part of the equation. If our designers are the architects, then our production staff are the engineers, and just the ones who are figuring out actually how to make it work. Here's where we step back and look at feasibility as well. We'll have conversations with the director and designer about how best to achieve the design with the resources we have. At this stage in the process, myself and the other members of the production staff really start jumping in. We'll look at the design and start to give feedback about what's possible. Sometimes this means simplifying or scaling down the designs, but really oftentimes it just means brainstorming to find the right solution until we can find what makes it work. This is when This is when like the creativity of the production staff really comes out and comes into play. I mean, it's figuring out how to make theater magic. And so we really are striving to find the best solutions to make these visions a reality. So next is the build phase. This is where much of the physical work begins, and we start to implement the designs. Our production team and shops begin building and purchasing everything that is needed to execute the designs. And from there, we go to the technical rehearsal period, or tech for short. This is where the design elements come together on stage with the actors. And so we'll go through the show moment by moment, adding in each element, and the actors will get to know the scenic elements and the props, and we'll add in each lighting and sound cue, and just really bringing the whole thing together. And then, of course, all of this culminates into what you see as an audience member on opening night, and leads to the run of a show. So this process is a little bit different for each design department. And so I'll just give you a little overview of step through each of the disciplines, and we can see what it looks like. So first up, here are some of the sketches for A Christmas Carol. And these are really preliminary, but they're used as conversation starters with the directors. And there's a way to make sure things are moving in the right direction. They're often paired with research that helps show the colors and kind of help ground what the drawings are doing as well. Once the concepts are in a good place, then the scenic designer will start working on the model as well as ground plans. Here we see models in both white and color, as well as ground plan, as the ground plan and section. And the ground plan and section are really important because they show how the set's actually going to fit in the theater. And but both the model and the ground plan and section, all of this is really useful, especially through the rehearsal period, because this is what in the rehearsal room they're referencing to see what the staging will be and how they're able to move through the space. So next is another one of the shows we've done, Viet Gone. Here we see again a preliminary sketch, but also this one's a physical model, a photo of a physical model, and you can see how closely aligned it is, as well as another ground plan here. The physical models, those are really exciting to have in the rehearsal room well, because you can also like move the little people around and kind of get your hands on and move the furniture around in the moment. There we go. So once that design has been approved, the designer also will need to be fleshing out further design elements. And so this kind of shows what each of those components looks like. And then the technical director will take those plates from the designer and turn them into drawings that can go to the scene shop for the carpenters to build. So here we can see the dimensions that are laid out for these pieces. Other paperwork that is provided are also like paint elevations, and those would go to the scenic artists. And here we can see a little time lapse of the work that went into painting the floor for Viet Gone. This was a pretty big undertaking. Yeah, and turned out to be a pretty spectacular feat. So other paperwork that the scene designer is going to be providing are for the props master. And so here's a portion of a props list with research images of what those items might look like, as well as a sketch of a prop that would need to be built, this motorcycle for Viet Gone. And here you can see it in how it turned out on stage. Great, so moving, so that was a quick rundown on scenery. So let's take a look at costumes. Sometimes the process can be fairly similar to scenery. Here are sketches from The Legend of George McBride, where you can see a designer started with simple concepts showing silhouette of some of these different looks. Next, he added color and more detail. The sketch is helping to demonstrate more of the scope of the design. These designs were used by the costume shop to create patterns and to build the costumes. Once the costumes are built, an important next step for costumes is to get the actors into them and have their first fittings. This is where the designers learn how well they fit, what adjustments they need to make. This is also important for the actors too, because it gives them a chance to better understand what their characters are going to be living in for the show. Now, there we go. And here are what those final looks like on stage. So not every costume will be built from scratch for every show. Oftentimes, it's a matter of finding the pieces that already exist to help create a look. This may be done from pulling pieces from our own costume shop, pulling from stock of another theater, or shopping online, or at thrift stores, or about anywhere else. Here we can see, so here are the collage boards for Miss Bennett. So instead of the designer doing sketches, she put together the collages to show the types of items that she was going to be looking for. And similarly, we also have collages for the hairstyles on this show, because each of the women in this show had a wig, and here are the designs for that. And here you can see how it all came together in the end. Right. So other areas of design are a little bit different. While lighting design is a visual form, it's harder to sketch lighting out. So lighting designer will use research images similar to the other disciplines, but the first drawings that we see from a lighting designer is the light plot. So here you can see how they have laid out where every single light goes in the theater, as well as what type of lighting fixture that is. And each of these is a position up in our catwalks or possibly on stage. And here's a side view as well. Here's that section view that shows where they're at. So that material gets handed off to the lighting supervisor, and they will hang all the lights as well as lead the focus of the lights. And here's a little clip of a time-lapse clip of what that focus might look like. And I'll play it again. You'll see all these lights flashing on and off really quickly. Obviously, this is sped up, but each of that is one of those light fixtures getting pointed to its correct placement on the stage. So here's one of those final looks for Shakespeare in Love, of how those lights come together. When the lighting designer is in the tech process, which is where a lot of their work happens, just using the light plot would make things a little bit tricky to keep track of what they wanted all those lights to do. So here's an example of a magic sheet. And this is just a quick reference for the lighting designers. They can remember which lights do what, and so they help them know what they want to turn on at what times. For sound design, we will get a similar bit of paperwork. We'll get a sound plot. So here you can see each of these red shapes is a different speaker, and the blue has notes on what those are. So this shows where the speakers are placed around the theater as well. Sound design can be a little bit, it's a little bit different, a little bit the same. Sometimes you are looking for things that you're looking for sound effects or music that already exists. Other times you're wanting to create those from scratch. The designer will look to either record their own sound effects, maybe they'll compose their own music. Here I'll show you a little sampling of playing with recording our own sound effects. This was for the humans, and we played with sound effects in the catwalk. And this show had noisy neighbors upstairs, so we were experimenting whether or not a crew person could live be in the catwalk and make those noises up there. In the end, we decided to record the sounds on stage, since we had a 2-level set for that show, and our trained crew was able to help record these sound effects to replicate upstairs noisy neighbors. Great, so that is an overview of those design areas. Thank you so much for coming to my Play on Web episode today, and I hope you know a little more about the production phases than you did before. Thank you.